everyone, it's Jean from the Inky Owl Studio. Welcome, welcome. I am starting a new series, and it is how I assemble my recipe keeper books or journals, or don't know what you want to call them. But anyways, I'm going to show you how I assemble them. And this one here is not the finished product, of course, but it is a sample of what we're doing. And we're going to be putting pockets on all these pages so that you can store recipes in here. So it's like a heritage recipe keeper, like if you wanted to collect recipes from your family and keep them in here, or it's just for your personal use as well. And so we're going to be doing that today. Now, the instructions that I am giving you, or you'll be seeing here, are from are previously recorded. And at that time, I was working on a recipe journal that had journaling pages on the inside. And so you can have the option of doing either way. However, as I go along in the series, this is what we'll be ending up with, is the one without the journal pages. But I will be interjecting about that if you wanted to make one recipe holder that had papers where you could write on. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be doing, and I hope you, if you're interested, I hope you subscribe and finish out the series. I do believe there will be about 4 or 5 of them coming up, and I thank you so much for viewing. So we will get started. All right, let's start with our hinge. The base of the hinge is going to go inside, and the hinge is what's going to connect your you're going to connect your pages to the hinge. And if you kind of look in here, you can kind of see where it is thicker, more cardstock than up to the rest of it. Here, we'll take one, and that is the hinge that's coming up, and then these papers are being glued to the hinge. So in a sense, the hinge then will be folded up like so, and your paper glued together, and your papers will ride up against that hinge, and then you can flip it back and forth. And so there's different types of hinges. There is the one hinge where you can put down papers and put down cardstock with, wide, little less, little less, little less, and build them up together. And that is what the inspiration video showed you to do. But you are, I really felt that wasn't strong enough for something to be used and to kind of be heavy with a lot of stuff stuffed into them. So I'm doing this type of hinge. Stack the deck, that was the name of the hinge. I'm sorry. Stack the deck was another method, and that's the one the inspiration video used. But I want a little bit more stability in this hinge, so I'm doing it a different way. The first score line you put down, you need at least 1 inch to 1 1 1/8 left over here. That's not going to be part of the, it's going to lay down flat. This is going to lay down flat so that when you put your hinge inside, then this is where that section is, and you got something glued over it to give it a lot of stability. So you need at least 1 inch to 1 1/8 on both sides. Is what you'll end up wanting in somewhere in that place. And so I am going to show you briefly kind of the philosophy behind how I'm making these hinges, and I'm doing this. I know it's going to be a little detailed, and you may have to play it twice. But I want you to have this knowledge so that you can make whatever amount of hinges you want. You can make less. You can, if you had like a 12-inch piece of paper, you can make another extra hinge that I'm going to make. You can kind of make it your own. So after you do the first one, then you're going to count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces, and you're going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 2 lines here are going to represent a hinge. that is not very close, but it's going to be the hinge, and that's the part that's going to fold up like this on your paper. Okay, that's what these two represent. Then the next line is going to be how far apart you want your hinges to be. So with a recipe journal, and this could vary depending on what your purpose of your journal, but for a recipe you're going to be putting in pockets, you're going to be putting in recipe cards, there's some stuffing you're going to start doing. So I am allowing at least 1/4 of an inch between each hinge, and that is 2 spaces. And then you start over again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you start again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it helps you as you make your first one, you can start writing down what the score places are up here, but I find it just as easy to count. Now, if you want to put a signature in between the 2 hinges, I am allowing 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 over. And this is how much space I am going to put between 2 hinges that I would like to see, so that I have room to sew in. So here would be a signature, right? So here's my hinge, here's my hinge, signature, and this is just a regular space, but my signature is going to go in here. It's going to be just slightly wider because I want to put papers in there. If I didn't want to put any signatures in or any papers, I would just continue with 4, 4, and 2, 4, 4, and 2, and I would go, let me just put up here, 4 spaces, 4 spaces, 2, 4, 4, 2. So you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. So that is the basic structure of the hinge, or as far as scoring the hinge. For this recipe journal and for the size of what I'm making, I am putting using a piece that's 11 inches by 8 1/4. I sliced off 1/4 of an inch because I want my hinge to fall down just a little bit from the very edge, right? Just a little bit. And so that's how I cut them down. And I'm going to start out with my 1 1/8. So I'm just going to do a few of these lines on camera because I just explained what I did, or I am going to do. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I try to get a pretty good score in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm putting a signature here in the first space. 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be a little wider than the other ones. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, that's kind of easy. I can count. Don't have to count that. I can see that okay. 1, 2. And now I'm going to just do a regular one in between. And do my 1/2 inch again. And my second 1/2 inch. I am going to, let me see, I have it written out here where I wanted to put them. So this one here gets a signature. Alrighty, and another 1/2 inch. Alright, so I'm not going to go any further, but there is one more place I'm going to put another hinge, or excuse me, signature. So it'd probably be down around here, maybe a couple more hinges, and then a last one for the signature. But you can decide, like I say, where you want your signatures to go. So I'm going to finish this out, and we'll be back and we will put the hinge together. And so the score lines have been finished, and I've started to do the folding. And you can see that our goal is to have these hinges folded up like so, with some space in between them. And I do that by locating, let's see if you can see on here, this is the hinge. It goes from here to here. I locate the middle. I fold it up towards me, and that's like my mountain peak. I kind of make sure that my paper is even in there, so that the two ends are pretty even. So I have my mountain peak. Then there's the score line right here. So I'm going to pinch it, and then I'm going to fold it over this way. And then here is the next score line is right here. So this is the valley of my hinge. It's at the base of it. And I'm going to fold that a little bit towards myself. So it's a lot like the fans we used to make, paper fans. It's a lot like that. So I'll make one more. So here is the half inch, and here is the peak of the hinge right there in the middle. I'm folding it out up towards me. I'm going to burnish it. And then here is the base of that hinge, or the first score line of that hinge. You can kind of see that. And I'm going to fold it down like that. Here's the next base of that hinge, and I'm going to fold it this way. So now you see how it's starting to pile up there. And I'll do the last one. Here is the peak of the hinge. There's the valley. And here's the other valley. All right, I'm going to just score the back of it here, so I can be a little bit more direct. But that is basically, I'm going to reinforce the score lines, that's basically how it is that you're going to be folding your hinges. Now we're ready to glue the hinge together. We want to glue it together so that when we set it down, this little hinge will stand up like so, right? So a real natural choice for this would be to put down double-sided tape in between this hinge in here, and that's usually what is used like in mini albums and that such. But I do not have any right now, so I'm going to do it with glue. And you'll probably want to choose a fairly, a good glue that's probably quick drying. And, this Fabri-Tac is great. You can probably use 3-in-1 Fabri-Fix. Would probably work really great. Now I want to make sure that right along the base here of this hinge, right down in this area, that's got a nice bead of glue, and one here and one here. Those are probably the two areas I want to make sure I do have plenty of glue, or not gobs of it, but I want to make sure that there are as little gaps as possible in between those two areas. And then I'm just going to pinch of those two areas together, and I'm going to put little clips on here because I want to make sure it's nice and dried and there is no lifting. So I want to check under here, there's no seepage So it's all very good there. And we'll just make sure it's nice and glued. Run my fingers through there. Probably should have done that before I put the clips on. There we go. So it's finished, and I would probably let this sit overnight just so that it will be really dry and really set. Even though it is dry, I just want to make sure that it is set really well. So I am letting this sit overnight. And then, now that I've done this part, I know now about how wide I'm going to need to make my spine. I'm going to need to make it so that it will fit onto here. Okay, so I'm going to need to make a spine that is about 2¼ inch wide. Is the spine that I'm going to be putting into here. So that's why I usually make the hinge first, just to, compensate for any variances I may have accidentally incurred. Maybe one of the spaces is wider than I should have made it, or whatever. But at least this way I have a very good handle on how much of a spine I need. So in the next video, we're going to talk about putting the pages onto here. And so yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot for watching and following along. And I hope this is going to be a project that you'll want to attempt. I know there was a lot of instructions this time, and I appreciate you sticking with me. The other steps are not as complicated. This really is the most complicated step. So once you get past this, you're free to go. I'll talk to you later then. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.